Councilman Richard Sterling thought he was a big deal, a really big deal. He drove a shiny black car that was always just a little too fast. He wore suits that probably cost more than my first car, which was a used minivan, by the way. Very practical. But Richard wasn't about practical. He was about being important. When he walked into City Hall, he expected people to get out of his way. He didn't say hello or good morning, he just sort of glided past everyone as if they were furniture or maybe ghosts. He saw them, but he didn't really them. He had this way of looking at you, down his nose, like you had something on your shirt. It made you want to check your shirt, even when you knew it was clean. He especially disliked the city workers, the ones who cleaned the floors or fixed the pipes. He called them the help. In his mind, they were just there to serve him. He never learned their names. Why would he? They were just faces in the background of his very important life, a life filled with meetings, handshakes, and looking good for the cameras. He believed he was destined for great things, and these little people were just obstacles. I saw him once yell at a janitor. The guy had accidentally left a mop bucket in the hallway. Richard almost tripped. He didn't fall, but you would have thought he'd broken a leg. He puffed out his chest and his face got all red. He said, "Do you have any idea who I am?" The poor janitor just looked at the floor and mumbled an apology. Richard just huffed and stormed off, leaving the janitor looking smaller than ever. It was like watching a big dog bark at a little puppy. It just felt wrong. And kind of sad, really. Richard's whole world was a stage, and he was the star. Everyone else? They were just part of the set. He believed that his intelligence and his position made him better. He thought he knew everything about everything. He would often interrupt experts in meetings to give his own, usually less informed opinion. He thought being loud was the same as being right. He was convinced that the world revolved around him, his plans, and his next big political move. He had no idea that his world was about to get very, very small, and very, very muddy. Now let me tell you about Leo. Leo was the opposite of Richard. He wasn't a big shot. He was a maintenance worker for the city parks department. He had a kind face with little wrinkles around his eyes from smiling so much. He wore a simple, faded blue uniform every day. It had a little patch that said Leo. He liked his job. He found a quiet satisfaction in it. Fixing a broken sprinkler, planting new flowers, or just making sure the park was safe for kids to play in. These were the things that made his day feel worthwhile. Leo started his day early, before the sun was fully up. He'd drive his old, trusty pickup truck to the park. The truck was a bit rusty, but it never let him down. He knew every inch of that park. He knew which trees the birds liked best. He knew where the ground got soggy after it rained. He knew the names of the regulars who walked their dogs every morning. They would always stop and chat with him. They didn't see a uniform, they saw Leo, a good man who took pride in his work and always had a friendly word for them. He didn't have a lot of money. He packed his own lunch every day, usually a simple sandwich and an apple. He lived in a small apartment on the other side of town, but he was rich in other ways. He had friends, he had the respect of his community. People knew they could count on Leo. If a kid's ball got stuck in a tree, Leo would be the one to get his ladder and climb up to get it. He never asked for a thank you. The smile on the kid's face was enough payment for him. He was just a genuinely good guy. He had seen Councilman Sterling before. Usually the politician was just jogging through the park, phone pressed to his ear, ignoring everyone. Leo would just nod and keep working. He didn't expect a greeting. He knew some people lived in a different world, a world where you don't notice the guy trimming the hedges. Leo didn't mind. He wasn't doing his job for the attention. He was doing it because it was his job, and he believed in doing a job right, whether anyone was watching or not. One afternoon, Richard had a brilliant idea, or what he thought was a brilliant idea. A local news crew was doing a story on the city's parks. Richard wanted to be in it, of course. He wanted to look rugged, outdoorsy, a man of the people. So he decided he would take a canoe out onto the park's lake. He imagined the headline, "Councilman Sterling Connects with Nature." He saw the perfect photo op, him paddling gracefully with the sun setting behind him. It would be perfect for his campaign website. He was a genius. There was just one small problem. Richard had never been in a canoe before, not once. But how hard could it be? He was Councilman Richard Sterling. He could do anything. He brushed off the park attendant who tried to give him a safety lesson. "I think I can handle it," he said with a smug smile. He refused to wear a life vest. "It will wrinkle my shirt," he complained. He just wanted to get out on the water and get his picture taken. He was in a hurry to look impressive. So, he got into the canoe. It wobbled. A lot. He almost fell just trying to sit down. He grabbed the paddle and started pushing the water. But instead of going forward, the canoe just started spinning. Slowly, then a little faster. It was like a very slow, very ungraceful merry-go-round. The news crew on the shore was trying not to laugh. Richard's face started to get red. This was not the heroic image he had planned. He was starting to look silly, and he hated looking silly. Frustrated, he stood up. This was a very, very bad idea. He thought if he stood, he could get more power into his paddle stroke. The moment he put his weight on one foot, the canoe tipped. It didn't tip slowly, it went over in a flash. 1 second, he was a powerful politician. The next second, he was in the cold, murky lake water. His expensive suit was soaked. His perfect hair was plastered to his head with algae, and he was sinking. He had forgotten one very important detail. He wasn't a very good swimmer. Just as Richard's panic was setting in, another boat appeared. It wasn't a fancy canoe, it was a small metal workboat, and at the helm was Leo. He had been on the other side of the lake, clearing some weeds from the water filter, when he saw the whole thing happen. He saw the wobbly canoe. He saw the man stand up. He shook his head, knowing what was coming next. When Richard went into the water, Leo didn't hesitate. He started his small motor and headed straight for the splashing councilman. Leo reached the spot where Richard was flailing around, gasping for air. "Grab on!" Leo shouted, holding out a life preserver. Richard, sputtering and coughing, grabbed it like it was a winning lottery ticket. Leo calmly pulled him toward the side of the little boat. It wasn't easy. Richard was a big guy, and his waterlogged suit weighed a ton. But Leo was strong from years of physical work. He managed to haul the drenched, shivering politician out of the water and into his boat. He didn't say a word about Richard's foolishness. He just wrapped an old, clean blanket from his truck around Richard's shoulders. "You're okay now, sir. Just breathe," Leo said in a calm, reassuring voice. He navigated the boat back to the shore where the news crew was now filming a very different story. Richard sat there shivering, embarrassed, and surprisingly quiet. He looked at the man who had just saved him. He recognized the simple blue uniform. This was one of the workers he always ignored. A man whose name he didn't know. A man who had just saved his life without a second thought. When they got to the dock, Richard stood up on shaky legs. He looked at Leo, really looked at him for the first time. He saw the kindness in his eyes. He saw the quiet dignity. "Thank you," Richard said, his voice barely a whisper. "You saved me." Leo just nodded. "Glad I was here to help, sir. You should probably get into some dry clothes." Richard looked at his ruined suit, then back at Leo. In that moment, he didn't feel like a big shot. He just felt grateful. He learned that day that the most important people aren't always the ones in the expensive suits. Sometimes they're the ones in the humble workboat, offering a helping hand.